Here's a quick disclaimer. The views, statements, and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers. The statements are not intended to be product claims or medical advice. Hi, Diana Frike here, and I am the host of the Gooder Podcast, where I get to talk with the powerhouse women in food, beverage, and wellness categories about the business of consumer packaged goods, branding, and leadership. This episode is brought to you by Retail Voodoo. Retail Voodoo is a brand development firm providing strategic brand and design services for brands in the food, wellness, and beverage industries. Our clients include Starbucks, Kind, REI, PepsiCo, Hi-Key, and many other market leaders. So if your goal is to crush your competition by driving growth and disrupting the marketplace with new and innovative ideas, give us a call and let's talk. You can find out more at retail-voodoo.com. Okay, well, today, very excited to introduce a cousin. Haha, inside joke. We'll tell you a little bit later. Margaret Wishingrad, who is the CEO and co-founder of Three Wishes Cereal. Margaret has grown Three Wishes from conception to a national brand with retailers including Whole Foods, Sprouts, Erewhon, that's pretty rad, and many more in addition to a strong DTC arm. Before founding Three Wishes, Margaret was chief of staff at Big I Wish, an ad agency where she worked with Fortune 100 to seed round startup businesses. Wow. Welcome, Margaret. Nice to meet you.
Likewise. Thanks for having me, cuz.
Yeah, cuz. Where are you located today?
So I am in Scarsdale, New York, which is about a half hour north of New York City.
Okay. All right. And are you guys which season are you having today?
Literally the question of this is the New York question. Like, what season are we having today? Today is like a very London day. It is rainy, gray, and not it. It was summer last week. Next week might be winter. We don't know, but I'm hoping for summer.
All right, it's coming. And then you'll be in the summer heat and be like, oh, okay, we'll go back to the bumper season. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so a little bit of background before we get into our conversation. The reason why Margaret and I are referring to ourselves as cousins is we did a little historical a moment before our call and found out that we have some common ancestry by way of not nationality per se, or I guess we could call it nationality. How do we want to call that? We both have, we both have Jewish
by
ancestry.
Way of journey.
Yeah, right. Journey for sure. And that was pretty fun to discover. So we might be weaving a little bit of that into the conversation, but wanted to let you guys in on what that inside joke was there in a moment. So let's start at the very beginning. Hey, I always like it when my guests tell us about their brands. Why don't you tell us in your words what Three Wishes is and what does it stand for?
Yep. So Three Wishes is a better for you cereal brand. And what we're able to do is take the classics that you kind of know and love. And I think there's some irony that I'm an immigrant in the American breakfast category. But it was taking... Oh, I cut out for a second. Can you hear me?
Yeah. It'll continue to record. It'll look like it's not recording, but it'll continue to record.
Sorry. One of my windows on my 37,000 tabs decided to mid-conversation swap over, and I'm like, Diana, you here? Okay, so I'll do you want me to start from where I was 2 seconds ago?
Yep, start from right where you were.
All
no
right.
problem.
So Three Wishes is a better for you cereal brand, and there's a couple of things with the name Three Wishes that I could dive into, and then that'll help explain the product.
Ooh, yes, please.
So, my original last name was at the very beginning of the alphabet, my maiden name. And then I married my now husband, Ian, and changed my last name to Wishingrad, which has a wish in it, which you see consistently through our brands. And we created this product for our own family and my son.
Mhm.
And so it was really natural for us to weave the story, the three Wishingrads, into the brand story. So the three wishes
Oh.
is two things. It's the three Wishingrads that created the product, and then it's the three wishes we had for cereal as a whole, which is we wanted to create something that had protein, a lot less sugar, and was
Mhm.
gluten and grain free and just really nutritious. And that's kind of what
Mhm.
Three Wishes is. It's your classic take on cereal with a modern twist,
Mhm.
and brings the cereal you know and love, but just in a way that you're excited to consume it again.
Yeah. Where did the idea come from?
So, having our little bit of a bit branding background, I think we're really close to always keeping an eye on just what's innovative, what's happening in the space.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm also a really health conscious consumer, and that's something that came later in life. My parents, when we came to the States, fed me McDonald's and all of the
Yep.
things that Americans think are exciting.
Americans do.
Right?
Mhm.
And, as an adult, I started to realize that wasn't the best for me, and I started to really incorporate some really great healthy practices. And then you have a kid, and you're spending all this time carrying this
Mm.
baby, bringing this baby to earth, and then you realize that it's really what you feed them is so important. And I think we're also in this point of time where it's like food is thy medicine. And
Yes.
I really was focus on what I feed my kid. And one of those recommendations for little pincer skills, a little crab skill, when you start to develop it, you see most little
Yes.
kids in their stroller with a cup of Cheerios. And
Right?
that was a moment for me where I haven't had cereal in way too long, and where I realized there wasn't necessarily a ton of options or alternatives in the market for my own family. And for me,
Mhm.
that was, as especially as a brand person,
Mhm.
astonishing. I'm just like, wow, you have 40 feet of shelf space in most
Right?
grocery stores, colors, this category is billions of dollars, and no one came out with a healthy cereal. Or I'll add truly healthy cereal. I think a lot of
Right.
people did healthy marketing, one,
Mm.
couple grams fewer here, now fortified or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And nobody really revolutionized what cereal was. And so Ellis was born in 2017, and by late 2017, I kind of was like, okay, this is am I the only one feeling this way? Are there other people
Mhm.
that left the category? Then you look into it, you're like, the category's in decline. You start to ask around. And that was what kind of planted that seed for me of like, okay, wait, this is a real
Yeah.
problem. No one's
Yeah.
really consuming cereal like they used to. And
Mhm.
90% of American households have a box of cereal in there.
Mhm.
Maybe this is the time for us to create one. And that
Yeah.
was kind of what started it and inspired it.
That's so interesting. You said a couple of things that I wanted to point out. We worked with, and I also interviewed Carol Smith from Go Go Squeeze, and she's been on the innovation side for years. And one of the things that she pointed out when we did our interview was that women and their respective families are open to just about changing every habit and thing in their entire household when a child is born. And if you want to have an impact on helping people change the trajectory of their eating habits, you introduce those items early. And I think it's brilliant, the cereal concept, because you're right. That's a really easy solution. Cheerios is not the greatest, but it's also far from the worst that you could be giving
Right.
your little in the store. But if you could make that actually have a nutritional benefit instead of just satiating a need to hold something and eat something, why wouldn't you do that? Right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's the crazy thing is like you you come across so many more problems when you become a parent that you don't necessarily see as just a
Exactly.
solo single adult. And so
Mhm.
aside from being a parent as an eye-opening experience, it was also
Mhm.
just you're just exposed to so many consumer behaviors that I think you want to modify in your life.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? 'Cause, you come from a similar background as our firm does, and when you are aware of those experiences or what's happening with the consumers, you almost think to yourself, or at least I remember going through this, like, how did I not see that before? Like, it was right there in front of me the whole time, but it's all relevant, right? It's all what is happening to me instead of what's happening in the world. We're just creatures of habit in that way.
100%.
Mhm. Well, so then tell us about the journey of creating Three Wishes. Were you doing the R&D? Did you partner with somebody? How did you get into the
Yeah,
market? How did Tell us about
that's a
that a
great
little bit more.
question. So, I
Mhm.
wish it were as easy as being able to R&D something like cereal myself.
Mhm.
So it took us 2 years to develop, and I think
Mhm.
that's where a lot of, people always discuss barrier to entry in any given market, and a big part of this one was actually cracking the code because grains, especially processed grains, are very easy to turn into
Mhm.
cereal. It is really hard to get in really nutritious and protein dense ingredients like chickpeas or pea protein to
Mhm.
behave and
Mhm.
look like cereal as well. So it took a lot of R&D from our side and a lot of time. And the first step was, because I know people constantly think like, okay, I have an idea. How do I bring this to life? So for us, we started to talk to a lot of food founders that we knew from just our network or like people I admire and brands I admire. I'd reach out to
Mhm.
them and their founders to just understand the process. And a big part of this was you really needed someone super technical that understood how to work with alt proteins and how they behave
Yeah.
in a cereal type setting. So we found a food scientist, and from that point on, it was two different things that led direction. One was me understanding the landscape and what was missing. And then the other part is what's the ideal product for me? What did I want to include? But more importantly, what did I want to exclude? And so once I kind of set those guardrails for myself and in a product sense, then we worked with a food scientist to bring them to life and to iterate.
Mhm.
We always talk about how many thousands of pounds of cereal we tried before we landed on the product that actually went to market. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what the process is. It's a lot of trial and error. And for me, the time that I knew I was ready to go to market was when Ellis tried the cereal at age 2 and change, and he asked for more because all the other pets were like,
Mhm.
"Try it," but you could see that he was like, "Okay, thanks, mommy." But this was the first
Mhm.
time where he was like, "Give me more." And I was like, "Okay,
Mhm.
now it's ready." Because if my 2-year-old that doesn't care about my go-to-market strategy or my pretty packaging or my price point or my ingredients or any of these things actually wants to
Mhm.
consume the product, then I knew I had a
Mhm.
formula for success in my own eyes of, okay, there are going to be adults that'll want this because cereal is a category where I think of it very 0 to 100. Everyone in between enjoys cereal. It's really broad. It's really easy and accessible. And so that guided a whole lot for us in the process to launch it. And then part of the process was developing the product, but part of that process was laying out the strategy and like, where did we see this? At what price points? At what retailers? And how did we want to approach that? So that was kind of what
Mhm.
we did within that 2+ years of R&D.
Mm. Wow. Wow. And then, what was it like in those early days getting into retailers? Because right now, like the last time I went to QFC, which is one of our local Kroger stores, I noticed you have a number of facings, which is a pretty big deal for a brand of your size. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what has retailers excited about you now? Is it the same thing as in the very beginning, or was there something different in the beginning than now?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a few things, right? This category just didn't have innovation. It had some fun seasonal plays or different,
Mhm.
some more sugary stuff, but no, like now featuring Twinkies, but nobody necessarily went and changed it. So I think what excited them
Mhm.
was creating a space that one created more revenue for that piece of real
Sure.
estate, because I think, and this is
Mhm.
something that's really interesting and unique when you learn about the retail landscape, it's
Right.
really
Mhm.
expensive to be in stores, and
Oh my goodness.
it's
Yeah.
insane. And it's not like, I always talk about, I'm like, no one's adding, new products. Let's add more shelf space in our stores or extend the footprint.
Exactly.
You have what you have, and you either have to have a product that moves and works and creates revenue for your
Mhm.
store, or you have to put something else in that space. And it's a game of real estate entirely. And so our
Totally.
proposition here was, hey, and this is just, for the first couple of stores that we launched with was, hey, we have this innovation. We're going to work really hard on getting people to try it. You try it. How do you like it? How do you feel about it? Here's our story. Here's the mission. And here's what we think we could do. And
Mhm.
here's how much
Mhm.
more you can make by a slightly premium price point product. And so that was all really exciting. So the first couple of retailers that took that chance on us saw that it did really well. And that allows for you to storytell and expand. Now, when
Mhm.
part of the strategy in the first 3 years of of building our brand was go really deep in the accounts that you know you're going to do well in, and where you have consumers really looking for your product.
Smart.
And for us, that was the Whole Foods, the Sprouts, the Wegmans, all these
Mhm.
natural stores. And so we focused on really going deep there and adding additional flavors. So Sprouts, for example, a great account of ours, carries 8 SKUs full time and then has limited seasonal offerings. And when you're a cereal box, 8 is feet and feet in a store. It's not just
It's
like,
huge.
it's not like, oh, a bar. Well, that's much smaller. It's humongous.
Yes.
But that took time, and that took proving out that our brand
Mhm.
like really needed that space. And
Yeah.
so that was one part of it. And then now, as we start to mature as a brand, as we continue to think about strategy, and this is where stores like the Krogers and the Albertsons of the world exist, you
Mhm.
want to be able to consolidate that shopping experience for the consumer, because so many customers
Mhm.
will go to Kroger to buy their bread and water or bread and milk, but
Mhm.
then go to
Yep.
Sprouts to buy their local health store to buy
Yep.
specialty items. And so
Yeah.
now that we were able to build some of that consumer excitement and brand loyalty, we felt like it was the right stage in brand building to now bring it to a place where, hey, I don't need to do 2 trips, and I could buy my favorite cereal that I used to pick at the health
Yes.
store now at Kroger. So I think it was
Yes.
just for a point of brand maturity, and that's kind of
Mhm.
what happened there. But data still does all the storytelling. Yes, is a large part of it, us as founders telling our story of why we did this, and how we've
Mhm.
built the brand and how we're going to continue to build successfully at the retailer we're presenting it to. But a really large part of it's also the data and the success that the brand has had to date, and really working on a solid story there, and continuing to use that to sell in. So it's like a multi-pronged approach.
Oh, of course, especially I mean, yeah, you're still considered an emerging
Right.
brand, sub 5 years, right?
Yep.
Are you
Three,
coming up
three
on
and a
5
half.
years, right? Yeah, 3.5. Okay, so the kind of success that you're seeing is, not common for, an emerging brand, and so it tells us a lot about your tenacity and ability to take that story and resonate with the retailers. Super critical. We advise brands all the time. What you were talking about on facings and slots. There's no retailer that has some rando spot open waiting for you to show
Right.
up. You have to tell a story in such a way that you are going to displace something there and convince these retailers that you can make more money for them in that slot. And it's also the same for those brands who are getting ready to get discontinued. We have to remember, if you've got 7 facings, that there are 150 brands that are vying for that spot. You must absolutely have the velocity and support that brand out in the marketplace. So the retails, those facings and those slots, they're super important to just remain hyper vigilant on the activity there and respond aggressively as needed,
That's
right?
100% it. Everyone is always asking, what can I do that's incremental to the category, and how do we not go and cannibalize either your own brand or other brands? So
Right.
that's 1,000% spot on. And a big part of it is we think about it in a few different ways. We have a couple different constituencies that we're catering towards. One is
Mhm.
the consumer and making sure they have the product that they're hoping for, but
Absolutely.
then to also remember the buyer is our customer too, and
Absolutely.
making sure that we're setting them up for success in their job and curating the right products, the right flavors, the right
Yep.
assortment for whatever their set is. And so just making
Mhm.
sure everyone's happy at the same time, is kind of like the recipe that we see for success.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. It's a balancing game for sure. Simplicity, right? If you can keep the same message across all of your customers, consumers, buyers, distributors, etc., then you got it
Yeah,
down. The minute you start to have to zhuzh, zhuzh, zhuzh,
there's a
something's out of
problem.
balance. You got to go back to your positioning. Absolutely. Well, I understand that even though your brand has gone national, and you guys are having all sorts of success, you continue to operate out of your home. Can you tell us a little bit more about that decision?
Yeah. I do my best in pajamas, maybe. I don't know what the answer is. Like, maybe that's what it is. Maybe not wearing real pants on Zoom is the thing. I don't know. No, I have 2 children. I work with my husband. And
Mhm.
sometimes I'm like, if I have an extra 40 minutes in the day to not commute and just go downstairs and grind right into it,
Mhm.
great.
Mhm.
I also
Mhm.
have like my desktop set up. And sometimes I work best at night. And this is what I think is so
Yeah.
interesting. People read all these stories about entrepreneurs and they're like, you wake up at 4:30, you hit the gym, then you have a smoothie. And I'm like, that's
Mm.
not it for everyone. Like,
No.
I like maybe waking up at 8:30. Maybe I like waking up at 7. Like, that's my prerogative.
Mhm.
As a founder or an entrepreneur, I can do whatever the hell I want to do. Great.
Mhm.
And sometimes, I like coming downstairs when my kids are asleep and I could focus and not think about like, hey, did I do this? And I'm not having 1,000 emails coming in. That's when I'm firing away and just getting things off my to-do list. And so I love having that flexibility. I love that when my kids are coming home from school and they could run into the
Mhm.
dining room and I'm working, I get to kind of have them all. And I don't necessarily feel like I'm missing out on watching my kids grow up, because that is a
Mhm.
struggle that working moms and entrepreneur moms
Mhm.
feel is sometimes you have to pick one or the other. And I kind of get to mesh
Mhm.
all my worlds together. So I'm
Mhm.
sitting close to the kitchen. So it all works for me.
Okay. I can respect that. I think I started working from home part-time pre-COVID, and then, I still like to get to the office. The house calls me a little bit too much on some days. Does you know what I mean?
Interesting.
Like, if I 'cause I have taken over a a bedroom. We have one of our older kids has moved out of the house, and so I've turned it into an office, and I can close the door, but the minute I open the door, I hear the laundry, I hear the dog, I
Oh,
hear
I
the
don't hear those
all the
things. I
things.
put them on mute, specifically laundry. That's on that's mute until as long as I can mute. No, yeah, it's funny, it's interesting. I am somehow able in my own mind of like when the day starts, it just starts.
Mm,
Unless I'm gonna sneeze. Fun. Um unless I'm distracted by like, oh, I need a snack right now, I'm pretty focused. So I think it also comes down
that's
to
great.
your type of brain, and mine's able to just
Mhm.
be like, all right, blinders on, the rest of the world
That's
out.
great.
I'm doing me right now. And
That's great. I am not that. There was a time in my life I called myself a multitasker, and, the multitasking has exploded to sometimes I have to clean everything up and stop because 45 tab windows on my Google Chrome, right?
yeah, I mean, same.
That's that 45 windows are very distracting for me. To you, it sounds like you're very organized with it,
I'm
but
not. It's
not
it's
me.
organized chaos, maybe.
Mhm,
So it's like one of those things of like it's a mess, but I know where the things are in the mess. That's how I feel. But yeah, I think it's just like I've learned. I think this takes time. I've learned to just
yeah,
thrive in the mess a little bit, and
yeah,
I
mhm,
think in the beginning where I felt like I was underwater all the time, just like, "Oh, I have so much to do. I have more tasks than I have hours in the day and blah, blah, blah."
yeah,
Like here, I was like, "All right, you know what? I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna get to it. Nothing's on fire. Prioritize the fires because
mhm,
maybe everything's on fire." And then you
right,
learn how to kind of just get through it and do it. And it
mhm,
takes time though.
it does take time. Well, and now your husband is your CEO. This is something else that we
My
have, or
husband's
your
my
husband is not your
co-founder.
CEO. You're a co-founder, not your
He's not
CEO.
the
That
CEO.
was weird. I was It's like your co-founder, and I read co-CEO.
Well, by the
Uh,
way, we did in the
so
beginning toy with that of like, "Hey, how do we," and I'm just like, "This gets really confusing and super weird, and I'm gonna lead, and you're," and that's a thing I think that helped in the marriage is just, like, identify the things you're good at, and it's okay to give each other the responsibility, but
yeah, yeah.
sorry, Ian, love you, but co-founder.
Well, I know my husband is well, he's the founder of the company, but we're partners in the organization, and um, moving into me being into a more of the leader so that he can focus on certain parts of the business that he's better at.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of overlapping boundaries, and I'm curious, what sort of tricks, tips
That's
do
a
you
good
have
question.
to manage those boundaries? How do you guys manage work-life balance when work is at home all the time?
Yeah, that's great. A terrific question. I'm sure both my husband and myself would have complete different answers on this, but um, he learns to apologize maybe fast. No, but the thing we've really done is like if there is something going on the personal side, which every marriage has, right? We've learned to fight fast. You just like you
Oh.
go. You say it, you get it out there, because if you're going to just sweep it under the rug, it's going to build, it's going to seep into the business. And when all parts of your life intersect that same way, like you have
Mhm.
to solve it and deal with it and go on to the next thing. And so we kind of like we get into it. We're both passionate, fiery people. So we just fight
Mm.
fast, we get through it and we move on.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think the thing that we've learned by having two businesses together is the
Okay.
first one, I think, so agency side, I think we clashed a little bit more there, where we didn't necessarily know how to channel the frustrations or thoughts or whatever it was. But I think
Mhm.
that was a little bit of our work in progress in terms of how do we work together. And then
Mhm.
this one feels like, okay, we've got it down pat. I do this really well. You do that really well. Don't step into my territory here, and I won't step into your territory there. And
Mhm.
I think that's really helped us. But it's funny because I remember early on, we were talking to an investor, and they were like, well, why would I invest in a married couple? Like, what if something goes wrong? I'm like, worry not, we've got the kinks worked out in the first business, we're good, we've got it here. And so that's kind of the way we've taken that approach. But yeah, it's interesting because you also can't shut it off, and we can't just be like,
Yeah.
hey, it's Friday, it's 6 p.m. But I think we've just learned to, whatever balance means to us, and we've
Mhm.
learned to just juggle all of them. But more
Mhm.
importantly, I think we so love what we do and we have such heart for all of it that, when
Mhm.
we're on date night and it's 9 o'clock at night and we're at an amazing dinner, we don't mind talking about it. It's not like I'm annoyed.
Mhm.
And I think the beauty of doing the journey together is that when I talk about
Mhm.
something that's bothering me or frustrating me on the business side, non related to him, he understands where I'm coming from. And it's not just like an outside POV, like, hey, honey, I came home. How was your day? My day was this. My boss is me, like, and has no idea what you're talking about. This is
Right.
so relatable and interesting because you're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, yeah, so how is that going?" Or, "What are you doing?" Like, it's
Mhm.
really it's feels really nice because I think entrepreneurship can be a lonely journey for some, and to have someone that we
Mhm.
ride the roller coaster together and you
Mhm.
can bounce these things off each other, it's really nice.
Yeah, I agree, and I would say to that investor, if they were to ever ask you again, this is what I would say, because any organization could explode,
100%.
like, as a startup, but a husband and wife team have far more at stake, in the success of an organization because 'cause you're
Eggs in one
100%
basket.
invested, and if something blows up, it's catastrophic,
Mhm.
right? So you are putting it's 100% in the basket. There's nobody that's kind of stepping
Yeah.
off or sloughing off or anything
Mhm.
like that. Like to remind people that it's very hard on a marriage when things go sideways. I will agree with that because then sometimes it comes home. Well, it always comes home. And then you have to figure out ways to kind of work around that. Okay, we're not going to talk about that. We'll wait until tomorrow. Work tomorrow to talk through those things. But interesting. I'm curious. One of the things that my husband and I are trying to resolve is what sort of ceremony, how do we celebrate wins? We haven't aligned on anything. We're like a good bottle of wine, but we have a good bottle of wine all the time. Do you guys have anything that you do that you're like, okay, when something spectacular happens, small or big, I don't know, put a gold sticker on a poster? Like, what do you do? Or do you?
Yeah, I don't think that's interesting. So I think it goes back to just our relationship as a whole. And when people ask about just like, working together, I'm like we picked each other as life partners, which is more important than business
Mm,
partners. And I'm happy with who I
yeah,
picked. So I enjoy working with my best friend. But the larger thing
gotcha.
is so many people do the whole, like, especially when we were dating, we dated, married, did the whole kids thing really fast.
Mhm,
And they're always
mhm.
like, oh, you're just in the honeymoon phase. And I'm just like, that's a life POV. And you could be in a lifetime honeymoon if you choose to celebrate
Totally.
constantly and you choose to continue
Yes,
dating
ma'am.
each other and you do all of those things. And so I think for us, like, we never stop celebrating whatever's going on in life. So we always do those things. So we always have a good bottle of
I love
wine.
that.
We're always going out on fun dates. We're always continuing to keep that fire alive. So it's interesting when someone's like, "Well, what do you
Mhm.
do to celebrate?" I'm like, "I think we always just celebrate the whole time and
That's awesome.
remembering it's the journey and not the destination is also super important because I think
Mhm.
sometimes you get caught up and you let it get you a little angry, and getting
Mhm.
that edge off and just like hanging out and enjoying each other is a big part of the relaxation of being an entrepreneur. So we go for the good bottle of wine. We do that.
Always, always. You could go with a gooder bottle of wine.
That's right.
Well, yeah. Oh, Lord. Oh, I dad joked it. I'm fired. That's it. That's no okay. All right. I have a question. I really have this question. I asked this of, Asha, Asha Abuela. I don't know if you know her. She does, biscuits, and now the name of her brand is not in my head. She also comes from an immigrant family. Both of her parents come from different countries, and we talked about how kind of growing up in that type of family ended up being a sort of a superpower. And I wonder a little bit, you told me a little bit about your journey and a celebration when you kind of graduated from a program that just you had a internally celebration. Is there something that you feel that you bring different into business, or your approach in business might be different than some of the other people that could be starting up a brand?
Yeah. I think I really work on making sure, and this is not something just that I do in business, I do this in my personal life, is
Mhm.
really surrounding myself with great, interesting, positive people. But I go beyond that because there, along the way of building the brand, there were, whether it be investors or manufacturing potential partners
Mhm.
that I spoke to, and they
Mhm.
just weren't the right, they weren't on the same wavelength. They didn't either believe in me the
Gotcha.
same way or whatever it was. And so, like, I don't need to continue bringing and creating negative energy in my life. So, really carving that out and making sure whoever you build this business with, whether it's a spouse or a manufacturing partner or a retailer or a buyer, all those synergies together are really important, and what that like means going forward. And I genuinely
Mhm.
love everybody I either work with or engage with. And I think
Mm.
that really changes it because it's not, I don't treat it just like a step in my life. Like this becomes my life, but it brings me so much joy that it's okay. And so I think
Mhm.
for me, my little skill and superpower is like the soft skills I have, but it's not that that's forced. It's because I love all of the
Yeah.
people and I really genuinely care. I care about how their nieces and nephews are and how they are and what vacation they're going on. And I just love that. And so I think for me, having those soft skills and getting to use them in my life are really a big thing.
Awesome. Well, what advice do you find yourself giving others following in your footsteps?
Mm. It's interesting that you used follow in your footsteps because I think for me, one of my realizations as an entrepreneur is like there is no playbook. Don't even follow footsteps. Don't worry about someone else's how they did something or why they did it. I think it's okay to take inspiration from other founders, but I think what makes everyone a unique founder is their own little gut and their intuition and how they choose to build and what they do. So I would say a lot of I'm a very F the noise person and just like do your thing, go on your own path and build it the way you want to build it. It's not, you're not doing this for other people's approval, opinions, whatever it is. Just like really go for it.
Mm, I love that. And, uh, looking forward, what should we be
Mm.
looking to see from Three Wishes? Anything interesting coming out in the next bit,
Yeah,
or little
Mhm.
winks that you can
A
share with
lot of
us?
wings. No, so the thing that we're always working on, similar to how it took 2 years to do our regular core product, is innovation's a big part of what we do. So whether it's new flavors, which we always launch, but we're always working on new innovation behind the scenes, and we know how long that takes. But my goal for Three Wishes is to really create that trusted brand where you know their ingredients matter, when you know there's human founders behind it, when you know that they stand for something more than just like a capitalist outlook on something. And so,
Yeah.
really creating that brand trust and excitement and loyalty, similar to how I feel about certain brands in my life, is something that I really
Mhm.
hope to do. Is just create this fun household brand that you see time and time again.
How exciting. Margaret, I'm really enjoying this
Good.
conversation. Thank
Same
you.
here.
Our time is almost up. I have a question that I ask everybody. It's a kind of a non sequitur. And that's this. Are there any other women leaders or rising stars out there? It could be in our industry or not, that you'd like to elevate for the work that they're doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many that I've come across that I love. If I started naming them now, I wouldn't end until tomorrow. No, but the couple that have really inspired me,
Mhm.
and I think many people reference Sarah Blakely as an incredible founder,
Yeah.
revolutionized an industry that was dominated by men. That makes no sense because it was like should be for women.
Products for women,
Crazy.
right.
And she's really done an incredible job of leading with grace and purpose and a lot of these other things that I think matter in how you grow your company. So a big
Mhm.
kudos to her. But I really also love and am inspired by Chelsea Hirschhorn, who is the founder of Frida, which is Frida Baby, Frida Mom. And
Yes.
she is an incredible force. I was lucky, I'm lucky enough to know her and have spent some time talking to her, and such an inspiration, such a brilliant mind, and has really paved the way for some amazing innovation in the mom and baby space. And so big hat tip to her.
Oh, thank you. I love both of them. Well, we have been talking with Margaret Wishingrad, co-founder and CEO of Three Wishes Cereal. Where can people learn more about you and your
You
company?
can learn more about our brand at threewishescereal.com. We have a store locator so you could find your local store that sells it. And you could follow us on Instagram at Three Wishes, or you could follow me personally at MBWish.
I love it. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you,
today.
Hannah.
I'm so happy that we got to meet each other, and
Yay!
I look forward to what you do in the future. Yes. And then thank you, all listeners, for your time today. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you next time on the Gooder Podcast.
Produced by Heartcast Media.